matured, and as I really focused on my relationships with the animals, again, not knowing it was going to be this specifically, but then I was able to create my foundation, and it was almost like God said to me, you don't have to work with humanity any longer. You don't have to teach. You've fulfilled that purpose. Now this is going to be your legacy, and this is the work I want you to do. And so from the time I created the foundation, I realized that everything in my life was going to have to revolve around the animals. And I think that, well, the world has changed so much then from when you and I were growing up, but now people seem to be about serving themselves, not necessarily searching for spirit or looking to awaken themselves a lot of times. And the focus, I really believe, has got to be, what can I do to leave a legacy, or what can I do to serve spirit? What is it that is calling me? Because everybody has at least one dream within them, one passion, something that reaches them at those deepest levels that other things just can't touch or access. And it's about finding and identifying that, or those several things, because you can certainly have more than one purpose. And so I think that now, especially in history and the way the world is unfolding, we've got to start looking at things from this deeper level.
Right. Yes, we do. And you followed your intuition, that inner voice, that inner calling. And so many times we don't trust that little voice. I remember years ago in cartoons, they used to show a little angel and a little devil on the shoulders telling the person to do something.
Right.
And when you hear a voice sometimes, I still picture that, but the devil doesn't talk to you like that. It's your inner voice, your gut instinct, something telling you to go in a certain direction. And I know every time in my life that I've gone against it, I realized later I should have followed it, but there was a lesson to learn. So when you do things that maybe are against that inner voice, or maybe you say to yourself, well, I probably shouldn't be doing this, and you do fail, why do you think that is? What is the reason that happens?
Yeah, I cannot believe you actually just said that, because just a little while ago this morning, as I was doing some spiritual reading that I do, just kind of set my day up, I was reading where someone had said something to the effect of, all our choices serve us. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, okay, this is something I want to put into my seminar next week. And what I got when I tuned in about it is that all of our choices, all of our decisions actually are moving us toward our higher good. We may not realize it at the time because we're so intent on the idea of making a mistake or having a good decision or a bad decision. And first of all, the way I view mistakes is just like in the movies where you have, take 1, 2, 3 or whatever. And so for me, a mistake is just a mistake, and you hyphenate it. And you can go back and redo it. And so when we have the different choices or decisions, they're all moving us toward life. But But because we do get so caught up into defining it as good or bad, we don't always see it till a little later what that means. And everything is about giving us lessons, insights, blessings, backhanded blessings at times. And so once we begin to become really the observer and look at our life, even as we're going through it and detaching from it, then we're able to see, oh, all right, when I did such and such last week, and now I see it wasn't the wisest move, but here's what I've learned from it. Or, for example, a lesson I learned from my friends, but I forgot to apply to my husband, is that, you know, a lot of times when we know that we know something, then we try to encourage other people to know it too. And that lesson or that insight may not be on their path. And what I have kept being reminded of with some of my friends was, look, you've just got to not try to push anything on them, invite them to consider an insight, but again, don't push them, just accept them as they are. Well, what I was finding with my husband was that, wait a minute, I kept pushing him to, you know, do this or see things this way or whatever, and then it finally hit me, wait a minute, you're giving your friends the benefit of the doubt. You know, you're accepting them where they are and not trying to convince them to be like you or think like you, but then you're pushing your husband to. And so it's that kind of thing, I think, that sometimes the understanding comes a little after the fact, that because we all agreed to be here and have these experiences, and the interactions, and even the painful and heartbreaking ones, the betrayals, the frustrations, again, those were things that ultimately will lead us into a higher journey within our spirit.
Yes, boy, isn't that the truth. You know, and it always seems like the ones closest to us, we just need to convince them. and that's a hard lesson to learn, because you were brought together for a reason, and it wasn't because you think exactly the same. You know, that, and we forget that, I think, sometimes. But boy, that's really true. So, and our philosophies are so in line with each other. It just amazes me. The things that you say are almost word for word with what I tell some of my coaching clients, because it doesn't matter if your mom wants to do things a certain way. Let her. It doesn't matter. Work on yourself, and part of working on yourself is accepting people for who and what they are, no matter what. And because of that, if you truly accept people for who and what they are, the people that come into your life, there are certain ones that you will know instinctually to let them in closer, and there are ones that you will not, if you truly accept them and see truly who they are. Do you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And that goes back also to, you know, what you were talking about trusting that voice. We are not taught to trust that voice. You know, we're taught, or our generation, let me just say that, because that's what I can actually reference. But, you know, we weren't taught to be open, and if you think you're seeing or talking to an angel that you really are, we were taught, oh, that's your imaginary friend, or, that's just a dream. Get real and go get a job and stick with it for 30 years, because that's what the generation our parents came from. And so it's extremely difficult to learn to follow and trust that inner voice when you've got to figure it out on your own. And hopefully people, when they begin their spiritual journey, whatever time of their life it is, they're able to, as you were saying, call to them in one way or another the people that will enhance their life and help it. But it is really about trusting it, and it's about, I feel, really honoring our spirit, and realizing that I like to think of it as emergence, that we're becoming human spirits, because, there's the little phrase that we've all heard about either being a human, a human being having a spiritual experience, or a spiritual being having a human experience. And I don't think it has to be one or the other, but we merge the two to where we can become human spirits. And for me, the greatest teachers have been the most painful ones, whether it was a relationship with my mother or people I've loved in the past. I learned through heartache, but I understand that, and so even as I'm going through it and in the process of it, I'm also able to see and trust now that this is happening for a higher purpose, and I will come through it, out the other end of it. So it's really amazing about trusting that inner voice, but then how do you do it, or who's going to show you how to do it,
Mm-hmm. Right. Yes, you're right. It's our generation that we were taught. I don't know. I never had anybody say trust your gut instincts until, I probably was in my 20s by the time I heard that. And it's interesting. But the good thing is that we are evolving as a species, because I used to tell my kids that, if it's wrong and you feel like it's wrong, don't do it. Not it's wrong because I told you so.
Right.
Or
yes,
that's the rules. Right. That's the rules. You have to follow them. That's not it. And it's just so interesting. Now I'm watching my son bring up his daughter, and it's different than the way that I brought him up. And it's difficult to... Well, it's not really that hard, but sometimes I want to step in and say something, and I don't. Because she has her own path, and as do they. And they're serving the exact purpose that they're supposed to serve in each other's lives, just like our children and us with our parents. We chose them, and it's their path.
That's absolutely true. And that reminded me, as you were saying that, of a point that I would like to just invite your listeners to think about, because this is a very difficult truth that Spirit has given about the animals. And again, it holds true for us, too, when we want to extrapolate that. But it's that the animals actually choose their destinies, which means not only do they choose their life, but they choose their deaths and the manner of their deaths. And so when we see, for example, the clubbing of the baby seals, or dog fights, or some of these horrific things, the shooting of Cecil the lion, we have a tendency to get visceral about it and to just want to fight against whatever happened. And so what Spirit was showing me is that these animals choose even these horrific deaths